Now today, a federal judge reversed the suspension of New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady. So Deflategate is trending again. U.S. District Judge Richard M. Berman said NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell went too far with his punishment and that Brady still insists he had nothing to do with the deflated balls in question. And he is sticking to that story. So here to discuss is attorney and former NFL cheerleader, Emily Compagno. Welcome to the show, Emily. Good to have you here on America Trends.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Now, Emily, exactly why did the judge overturn Brady's suspension in your view?
So think of this outside the realm of football. Think of this as an employer and an employee, where in their collective bargaining agreement, which happens throughout the United States, including the federal government, there's a bunch of rules set up. How the employer can discipline an employee, what they have to consider, what they have to look at, how to be fair. Well, if an employer goes outside of those bounds in the employee's eyes, then they can appeal to a court, to the federal court, and then say, look, this, my boss is out of line. I didn't deserve that suspension. And so it was overturned because Judge Berman agreed that the commissioner had gone outside of those bounds. He didn't consider things correctly. He levied too harsh of a punishment. He did things outside of bounds, and that is why he overturned the ruling.
Okay, so internally, though, what does this mean? Because those sorts of relationships between employer and employee are important for things to sort of sail along merrily, right? At least in a normal situation. You've been, close to the inside of the NFL. What does this really mean going forward from a working relationship perspective?
So what it means going forward is that, first of all, this is a huge victory for the NFLPA. So moving forward, it means employers or team managers and different people in the franchise will be much more hesitant to levy these strong punishments. And that's kind of been the commissioner's legacy, right? He's come in, he's really taken a strong stance with personal conduct and everything. And so this, I think, was a little bit of a check on that, which is that you can take your strong stance, but it's going to be overturned if you act outside of precedence or without precedence. And keep in mind, as a federal attorney, I actually acted in Commissioner Goodell's position, which was as the proposing and as a deciding official. So I know firsthand, not only from the NFL side, but also as an attorney, that I would have loved to discipline people a lot more strong than I did, but I had to follow procedure. I had to follow precedent. And if you don't, then you pay the price, which is an overruled decision.
So you sound like you think the judge's decision was proper. You think it was the right decision in this case.
Correct. I think it was a sound decision.
Okay, but what does that do? Because again, you're in such a unique position, having been a cheerleader in the NFL and knowing a lot of the players. What do you think this decision does long term in the court of public opinion, which might be what Goodell was going after in the first place?
Right. I think the court of public opinion is going to view him differently, and they're going to view the owners differently. And I think it's kind of it's going to indicate a trend where prior to this, I think there was often a lot of outrage and people definitely going the way of like, look, here's how I feel about this player's decision and this player's behavior and whatnot. And now I think this is a little like, look, this was too harsh. So it's going to come up player sentiment in the court of public opinion, and I think an anti-Roger Goodell public opinion sentiment.
Oh, you do? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
so
I do.
So the next time there's a scandal, does it mean that the person's just going to get away with it? And I realize there's no proof about Tom Brady in this. There's really zero, other than the missing phone or the destroyed phone or whatever. There's really no proof. It's all very circumstantial. I'm certainly no lawyer, but just from what I understand. But if the industry can't police itself and can't maybe take a harsher punishment, then what might be the consequence, the fallout from a sort of a lack of discipline, especially in the NFL where we've seen this kind of trickery before?
That's a great question. And the answer is really that there's a fragile balance now that the employer has to walk, which is you don't want to all of a sudden let the inmates run the asylum and let everyone go unfettered without discipline. That's not the point. It's that your discipline needs to be in accordance with the policy and in accordance with precedents. And so you just have to take it by the book. It's all about documentation. It's all about fair comparators. So if a player messes up in a certain way and that infraction is detailed in the CBA, look, you have to then give him a fine. You just can't suspend him. Okay, then I have to follow the rules and give him a fine. So I agree with you that it sounds a little alarming in that, does this mean that behavior is not going to go unchecked? But really, it just means that the employer has to be more careful at following these rules. And remember, prior to this incident, it was kind of a vague area. And because of this, the NFL created a whole host of very specific rules now about deflating or inflating footballs. And so that's going to allow, moving forward in this particular issue, employers to really adhere to that specifically.
That actually makes a lot of sense. So there have been changes. So for those who are maybe discouraged about the future of the NFL in light of this decision today, it sounds like you're saying, hey, look, changes have been made, and going forward, there would be more grounds to punish someone if this was properly recorded and the new rules were in place.
Right, both with this issue and in general with anything. It's all about proper documentation of evidence. It's having enough evidence. And if you don't, you just cannot wave a wand and dismiss someone. You cannot discipline someone. And think about it also as what an employee expects, right? They have an expectation that their discipline is going to be commensurate and accurate with what they have done inadvertently or purposely. And likewise, an employer has an expectation that their employee is going to follow the rules. Well, how can they follow the rules if they don't know what the rules are? So in this particular instance, now we have rules. And in others, the commissioner, or whatever arbiter is designated, has to realize, and hopefully will now, that they have to conform with this structure.
Yeah, thank you for explaining this, Emily. This is one of the most concise explanations I've heard to date, so I really appreciate you. Thanks for being on America Trends.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Now.